Hi, I'm Ken Edwards.
And I'm Dane Rakestraw. We're with Keystone Steel Wire, manufacturers of Redbrand agricultural fence products.
We're here today to talk about the installation of Keep Safe horse fencing.
We understand safety and security are very important to horse owners. The steps we're going to show you today will make sure you have a fence that looks good and lasts a long time. Now that you have your braces built and your fence posts installed, it's time to install your Redbrand Keep Safe horse fence. First, you'll need to remove the hog rings we use to package our Keep Safe horse fence. Use a line post or some other heavy material to hold the wire down while you unroll it. Again, be careful not to get snagged on the wire. Unroll enough of the wire so you can stand it up. You'll notice here we have enough wire to make sure we can tie off on the end post. To help you stand it up, you can drive a staple or a nail in and hook the wire to it. This isn't permanent, this is just to allow you to hold the wire up.
Next, determine where you're going to cut the horizontal wires to make the wrap around the corner post.
This is usually anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. Discard of the unneeded wire.
Next, we're going to remove the vertical wires. You want to cut enough vertical wire to give yourself 4 to 6 inches of horizontal wire,
because this is what you're going to use to wrap upon itself. As you can see here, Ken's cutting it very close so there's no nubs that can scratch or harm an animal.
Next, you may need to trim a couple vertical wires out to allow for the brace wire.
A little bit farther than the 6 inches you've done normally. This may be 8 to 10 inches back. Now we're going to start wrapping the wires back upon themselves. One thing you may need to do here is untwist the cable a little bit. It'll help in the wrapping process. So here Ken's showing you how to wrap 3 or 4 wraps per line wire. You'll notice he's wrapping the wires together, not independently. Afterwards, trim off any excess and then repeat for the remaining line wires. Now we're going to show you how to splice 2 rolls of fence together. Here we're using 2 crimp sleeves per line wire. These crimp sleeves can be found at your local ag supply store or on redbrandgear.com.
Now we suggest that you put the sleeves on the majority of the horizontal wires before beginning to crimp the sleeves themselves.
Here we're showing the crimp tool. Refer to the manufacturer's specifications to determine which hole to use in the crimp tool and which style of crimp sleeve to use. The reason we're using 2 is it's a very solid, heavy fence. We want to make sure we have a good grip between both fences.
And on this particular sleeve, the manufacturer recommends a minimum of 2 sleeves.
Once you've installed your fence posts and your brace assemblies, it's time to stretch the wire. We recommend using a dummy brace to pull off of as opposed to anything artificial.
And to build a dummy brace, take a cross member, lay it on the ground. That will be your distance from your permanent brace assembly to this hole that's being dug here for a post to be dropped in. And again, this is just a temporary post, so we're not going to tamp it up or anything like that. You want the height to be very similar to the permanent brace assembly. That's very important.
Next, we're going to take a 3/8 drill bit, drill about a 5-inch hole in our permanent corner brace. We're going to drill some holes on the end of our dummy cross member. Again, 6-7 inches deep, just enough to slip a pin in, because you're going to disassemble this system when you're done pulling your fence wire.
We're going to reuse this system on each installation pull, so what you see here, it may not be repeated, but it's definitely something that you can use on your next assembly.
Yeah, it's just a temporary assembly. We're going to drill another hole through the dummy brace. This one will go completely through. We eyeballed it to match about where our other hole was drilled at.
So as you can see, there's holes drilled in both ends of the cross member, one in the corner post, the permanent corner post, and then one all the way through the dummy brace post, the vertical dummy brace post.
Sometimes that leads to overstretching the fence and can cause some problems. We're going to take a brace pin, drive it in the permanent assembly. It's a 10-inch brace pin, 3/8 by 10 inch. And drive another brace pin flush to the opposite side so we can install the dummy cross member. You can get these at your local ag supply store.
Then take your dummy brace, slip it over the pin that's in the permanent corner brace post, line it up with the pin in your dummy brace post, and drive the pin through into the dummy brace. This is very similar to a permanent brace assembly, but again, this is just a temporary system.
That's about all there is to it. We're going to shim it up with some boards just to make sure it's secure. Again, the reason we recommend the dummy brace is it allows the force to be transferred back into the system, the fence system. And there you have it.
You have built a dummy brace.
Next, you'll want to install your fence stretcher bar.
Here we actually are using a commercial bought stretcher bar. You can use two 2x6s bolted together with a series of 3/8 inch diameter bolts, but here we're actually using a commercial type bar,
which you can purchase at your local ag supply store or at redbrandgear.com. Make sure that your bolts are tight. You don't want the wire to slip.
Next, we're going to cut off the excess that's left over.
Now we're going to install a couple chains on our dummy brace to attach our come-alongs to. On the top chain, you may want to use a staple to hold it up, as Ken is demonstrating here. After attaching your come-along, start applying pressure to the fence system.
And here we're just trying to get a little bit of the slack out before installing the come-along on the bottom. As you apply tension to the come-alongs, the product will try to stand on its own.
You may need to walk the fence line and help it up a little bit.
You'll probably have to come back and apply more tension to the fence. The great thing about the two come-alongs is you're able to apply tension independent from the bottom to the top. And all of the force that's being applied with these come-alongs is being placed back into the permanent brace assembly.
Which is going to make sure you have a strong, secure, tight fence.
Right, because the corner furthest away is trying to actually come this way, and the brace assembly in front of me here is being pushed on. So once I get this fence tight, it's going to stay put. Instead of pulling with a tractor or a pickup truck or anything artificial, that all the force is then applied into that permanent brace assembly, and you back the tractor up.
They need to walk the fence line again just to help stand the product up. Be careful not to stand it up too far, otherwise it may want to fall back down the other direction.
Yeah, and here the product's got enough tension, it's kind of standing up now on its own. Here, maybe do the final fine tuning on the fence. Again, you want to make sure that the vertical wires is pulling straight.
Now that you got your fence pulled tight, it's time to wrap your horizontal line wires. To do that, you'll need to cut and remove the vertical stay wires. Typically, you'll want anywhere from 20 to 24 inches of horizontal line wire to wrap back onto itself. You'll notice Ken started in the middle of the fence as opposed to the top or the bottom. Make sure to give yourself enough room to wrap the horizontal line wire all the way around that post back onto itself. Got it too short, you have a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, you don't want to start at the top or the bottom. You want to start in the middle, and the top and the bottom will actually fasten off permanently. And here you can see that I actually cut the wire. Everything still has tension on it other than the wire that I have. Stripping the verticals on Keep Safe is relatively easy. You can see how the vertical wires are just kind of sliding off and going into the bucket. Next, take that horizontal wire and wrap around the post. And then you want to wrap the wire back to itself. Again, there's no tension on this wire, but there's tension on the wire above and below. And then we're just going to wrap the wire like we did on the other end. Kind of untwist the wire, put a little bit of a hook, bring the wire around.
Again, you'll notice Ken kind of wrapping these together. You may need to trim off a little excess. You want to have anywhere from 2 to 3 wraps when you're complete.
And make sure that the ends are not sticking out towards the pasture of your horses. Any tails that you have, you want to make sure they're pointed either straight down or away from your animals when you get done with wrapping the fence here.
Next, you'll want to move to the next wire and do the same process over again. Do this until you've completed all the line wires except for the top and the bottom. Cut it 20 to 24 inches, wrap it around the post. Now that you've finished all the internal line wires, hard staple the top and the bottom to the post using 2 staples.
And then slowly release your come along, making sure that the wire's not going to slip. Everything else is tied below this wire or above the bottom wire, so just release your come along and wrap the top wire back to itself. Go back to any locations that you had made a splice, clean these areas up, take the tails off of any vertical wires. This particular project, we're installing a strand of barbless cable on top to keep the horses from leaning over and on the fence.
To do that, drive 3 staples on 3 different sides to secure the barbless cable to the post. Tie it off 4 or 5 times by wrapping it back upon itself. Next, you'll need to unroll the barbless cable.
At the other end, I'm just going to put a chain at the top of the post. Use a come along, then a small portable barbed wire puller. Any type of wire grabber that you can hook onto a come along works fine here.
These can be found at your local ag supply store.
And here, just getting the proper tension, making sure that everything's still secure, and putting tension on the fence.
Proper tension is one hand tight. Don't get 2 hands on it like a boat oar.
Next, fasten the tail that's sticking beyond the barbed wire puller. And then take the wire and wrap it back to itself.
When you finish wrapping it, take your come along off and your project will be complete. After you finish wrapping your barbless cable, take your come along off. At this point, you'll need to go back along the fence line and staple the keep safe to the posts. Start with the top line wire, skip 2, and then do the next line wire. You'll also need to staple the barbless cable.
We hope that the techniques that we showed you today are beneficial in your fence construction project.
The tools we used today can be found at your local ag supply store or on our website. Also, for a list of local Redbrand dealers, log on to redbrand.com.